It's on? Okay. So the Pasuk says about Yosef, when Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, it says, V'lo yochel Yosef asapik chanisav melov. So Rashi explains, he couldn't be sovel, he couldn't take that the Mitzrayim, as you know, being in a room, and you're a leader, you have your officers with you, you have your guards, you have your bodyguards, you're not alone in the room. Yosef could not be sovel to take that the Mitzrayim will be standing there and hearing that his brothers will be embarrassed when he'll reveal himself to his brothers. So therefore Yosef goes ahead and he goes ahead and he tells everyone to go out of the room. And there's a whole discussion, was that a proper thing for Yosef to do or not? Because some say, he put his life in danger by going ahead and now he's going out of the room, now he's only one there and he has all the brothers there. So, but obviously Yosef felt that just like Rachel, you could say where he learned this idea of, even technically, he even went so far to some say to risk his life to go ahead and to reveal himself with no one in the room. And he couldn't be sober. Where did he get this from? Maybe you could say he got it from his mother Rachel. We find that Rachel, what do we find about Rachel? We find that what did she do? She went ahead and she gave the simanim away to Leah. She was willing to give up everything. In order to what? Not to embarrass her sister. Not to embarrass Leah. And that was Rachel. Also, what did Rachel say when Yosef was born? What was the first thing that came out of her mouth pretty much? Asaf Hashem eschepasi. Hashem has removed my shame, my embarrassment. And now that I have a child. The idea, the sensitivity to embarrassment was something which is played a very big role in her life. And therefore she went, and therefore probably that was given down her own sensitivity of embarrassment, sensitivity of others. Not only people are sensitive to themselves, but when it comes to others, they're not sensitive. No, she was sensitive to the others. She was sensitive for Leah, and Yosef was probably, she ingrained this midah into Yosef, and therefore Yosef went ahead and he was so sensitive to it, not to embarrass his brothers. We also find in Chazal, it says at the end, towards the end of the Parshat, what did Yosef do? He sent the Mitzrayim to different cities. Why did he send his Mitzrayim to different cities? Right, he moved them all around the country. So one reason is that in order that his brothers shouldn't be embarrassed, that they'll be called Golim. The Jewish people, they were they were out of their own home. They left Israel. They went to Egypt, so they'll be looked at as the strangers. The strangers in the land. They don't have a place. Then the new people on the block. So Yosef also did something like that for the Mitzrayim. What did he do with Mitzrayim? He went ahead and he made them go to different places. So therefore, their brothers won't be the only ones that had left their homes. They also had left their homes, and also again to protect them, to protect that shame. Yeah, so that's an amazing sensitivity that Yosef had. As Rashi says, V'sa'am hevim, Perek Mem Zayin, Pasuk Chaval, it says V'sa'am hevir. The Pasuk says V'sa'am hevir asal Arab. The people of Egypt, Yosef sent them to different cities. So Rashi says, why is it necessary the Pasuk tell us? To tell us the praise of Yosef. He had in mind to remove the cherpa me'al achiv, the shame from his brothers. They shouldn't call them Golim. What's the big deal? I mean, you have to say, what's the big deal? They call them Golim, the people in exile, the people they're in exile. But no, there's a tremendous sensitivity of Yosef. I think these are some of the things that we have to learn from Yosef. Tremendous sensitivity, and also the fact that it says what does it mean? He couldn't take it. He couldn't. Rashi Yosef he couldn't. He wasn't able. It was impossible for him to be so well such a thing that his brother should be embarrassed. This is how we have to figure out in our life. It should be impossible for us. We can't take embarrassing someone. Just say Yosef couldn't be so well such a thing. That's how we have to be in our life. But as we know, at the end of the Parshat says Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz l'sayim be'eretz Goshen vayelsa bo vayiflu b'me'od. The problem was, like when Yaakov came down, they said they came logo b'aretz banu, right? When they came down to Paro and they revealed themselves to Paro, they said we're only come to sojourn in the land. We're going to be temporary here in Mitzrayim. We're not here to stay. This is not our home. But the problem was that was probably heard from Reuven Feinstein and others. The problem was the end of the Parsha, the last pasuk says, they got too comfortable in Egypt. The Jewish people got too comfortable. Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz l'sayim be'eretz Goshen. They dwelled in the land. Vayechazu ba. They took hold of the land. Become part of the land, as if like you're holding something. That's the problem. People who could be in Gullahs, what's it?
Also, Yosef told them to Vayeshev be'eretz.
To be what?
He told the brothers that you should come in Vayeshev. in the land.
But always as long as you know you're a ger, as long as you know this is not your place, you're not taking hold of the land, you could be successful in Golos. But when people in Golos, when you're in exile and you feel this, I'm taking hold of the land, as if this is my land, what happened to Eretz Yisrael? That's supposed to be your land. But if you forget, sometimes when you take hold of the land, sometimes you're forgetting about Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, that was the problem, one of the problems of the Klal Yisrael. The pasuk says in Perek Mem Hey, "V'hakol nishma." In Perek Mem Hey, when Yosef reveals himself, it says, "V'hakol nishma beis paro bo acha Yosef." The voice was heard. Right? It says the voice was heard in the house of Paro. The brothers of Yosef have come. Now, how would you spell kol? Usually you spell kol kuf vav lamed. And how is it spelled over here? Without a vav. Kuf lamed. Vav hey kuf lamed. What happened to the vav? Why doesn't it say v'hakol with a vav? Why is it missing? Is that a good question? I think it's a good question. And we had the same question we spoke out in v'hakol kol Yaakov v'yadayim de'esav. So how is it spelled? Hakol kol Yaakov is spelled, the first kol is spelled without a vav. And we said from the Gra. What do we say from the Gra? Because there's a famous Chazal. The Chazal say, V'akol kol Yaakov, when the voice of Yaakov is heard in the base of Medrash, in the base of Knesset, Esav has no power. But when the voice of Yaakov is not heard, Esav has power. So the question is, but the pasuk meaning Hakol kol Yaakov, when the voice of Yaakov is heard, Esav doesn't have any power. But the pasuk says Hakol kol Yaakov v'yadayim de'Esav. The pasuk says the kol Yaakov, and it does at the same time. It says like, the hands are the hands of Esav. So what did the Gra say? The Gra says the first kol is spelled without a vav. V'akol kol Yaakov, the hands of Yaakov, if it's weak, if it's missing the kol of Yaakov, then Esav has power. But when the voice of Yaakov is not weak, then Esav doesn't have any power. That's what the Gra, you got it? That's what the Gra says. Hakol kol Yaakov, when the kol is spelled without the vav, when it's weak, then Esav has power. So I wanted to say the idea is if it's missing a vav, that means it's weak. If it's missing a vav, something is weak. So I wanted to say like this, the same thing over here. V'hakol nishma beis paro bo ach Yosef. When the brothers were going to get out, that they came to Egypt. Now, as you know, they could talk about themselves and say these are mighty guys, these are big guys, strong guys, powerhouses of guys. But as we know, it says mixei echav lokav chamisha. When they came from the paro, which ones did they take? The ones that looked weakest. Why? As it says, because they did not want Paro to say, we want you to be, officers in our army. So therefore you take the weakest guys to show, because you don't want the Jews to become so much part of society and not be able to focus on what they need to focus on. So therefore the pasuk says Vakol. Now they had to strategize. Now they're going to reveal that the brothers came to Mitzrayim. Are they going to have a lot of publicity about they came to Mitzrayim, or they're going to play themselves down? Vakol nishma beis paro bo ach Yosef. The voice was weak when it said that the brothers of Yosef came. It did not come out to say that these superstars have come. These 11 superstars have come. These 11 Giborim, people who have power. Two of the brothers at a young age knocked out his whole city. They weren't going to reveal that. They played it down. V'kol nishma beis paro bo ach Yosef. And that's really the key in Golos, is that the Jews need to keep a low profile. You don't attract the jealousy and so forth of the goyim to try to take us in to become part of that melting pot. There's a famous, some say, when Yehuda says to Yaakov, when Yehuda says to Yosef, we need to take Binyamin back, because he said like this. How can I go to my father, Yehuda says, and the young boy and Binyamin is not with me? Lest I see the bad that my father will come to my father. So some translate it homiletically a little bit. How could a person after 120 go up to Shemayim and his youth, and the young years of youth are not with him? The person has to make sure that his vahanar, that the young years of youth, when a person's young, is also with him. and it's very productive in those years. Now the Malbim points out on the V'yigash Elav Yehuda. There's two ways. If you come to a court, you have two ways you could try to win a case. You could try to win a case by asking for mercy. You know you're guilty, but I need mercy and clemency, so on and so forth. Sometimes you want to ask for, you're right. According to the law, you're right. You should win the case. So the Malbim points out that Yehuda was not coming to ask based on that he should win the case, because like he said before, manoma manadabe manastadach elokim mosadav v'decha. There's someone guilty here. I'm not asking that you should go ahead and say that we're not guilty, but what I am asking is you're the king, and as a king you could wheel and deal a little better. Just like the president has certain powers, they could go ahead and grant clemency or other things. So therefore, Vayigash Elav Yehuda, he came to Yosef, Elav to Yosef, Bi Adoni, Yedav Avdavaz Adoni. It's the idea I'm asking you as the king, you as the master, you as the president, you have the ability to go ahead and to do something over here. And that's what he's coming to do. What I mentioned before, I have over here the Medrash is a machlokas if Yosef did proper when he put himself in sakana. The Medrash Tanchuma says sakana gedola Yosef went to, place himself in, but he said in his heart, better that I should get killed and I should not embarrass my brothers in front of the Nitzavim. That's just a quote from the Tanchuma. The Chafetz Chaim points out a very interesting observation. Perik Memhei Pasuk Gimel, it says, as you know, what did Yosef say when he revealed himself? The first two words that came out of his mouth, Perik Memhei Pasuk Dalet, he says, Ani Yosef. Then he said, Achichem, that you sold to me to go down to Mitzrayim. So what's Ani Yosef? Those two words, so to speak, the Chafetz Chaim says, those two words, Ani Yosef, really answered everything. The brothers could not understand what was going on over here. Why are they having so much trouble? Why are they being accused of spies? Why is this all these problems which doesn't make any sense to them? Right? They know they weren't coming to spy. And it didn't make sense, but Binyamin is going to steal the goblet. He needs the goblet. He doesn't have enough bechas back home. He needs the Paro's goblet. It doesn't make sense. But what happened is, by saying the words Ani Yosef, everything came. Now you understand everything. Now they understood that Yosef planted everything, and the whole reason why Yosef did it was because of what reason? That he wanted them, as many of them are saying, that they should do tshuva for his sale. And how would they do tshuva for their sale if they're faced with the same scenario as the Rambam says? What's called tshuva? Tshuva shlema, when you're faced with the same scenario with the same ability, and you go in and you don't make the same mistake again. So therefore, this is what they were faced with. Here they have their brother Binyamin is faced with the situation. Are they going to go and the tsar for the father? Well, do they go ahead and give for Binyamin and be willing to give of themselves? And would they be able to have charota for the sale of Yosef? And they realize it, like they said, Elokim motzasam v'ravdecha. They realize it, and right. This is right after Yehuda says, Yeshiv avdecha tachas, and I'll take his place. So when he saw that brotherly love that they had, they're willing to give up of themselves. Therefore, that's at that point. Yosef was willing to reveal himself specifically at that point. But the answer, Ani Yosef, answers everything. Now they understand everything. Life also is going to be that way. The Chafetz Chaim says, after 120, when the world will hear Ani Hashem, I am God, everything will be answered. People will have clarity. As it says, Molar's Deya, the people understand, will have a great understanding. When Hashem will reveal himself to the world, then they'll understand the place of the Jewish people throughout history. They'll understand how we were able to be here and how we were able to, why all these events, things will become clear. A lot of times in life, things aren't clear to us. But there'll be a moment, there'll be a time, just like by the Yosef, there was Ani Yosef, everything became clear. In the future also, it would become clear. And the Kotzker Rebbe says, Ani Yosef, Achichem Hashem Achartem Osi Mitzrayim, Yosef, your brother that you sold to Mitzrayim. Doesn't it seem a little odd that he should bring up, he should say, I'm Yosef, and the one that you sold me to Mitzrayim, as if to say, as if to bring up the sin, you say, I'm Yosef. I'll understand what Yosef, which Yosef, I'll figure out which Yosef he is. He'll start, like he says, I'll start talking Lashon HaKodesh, he showed in the Milah. Why does he have to bring up the point that I am Yosef, the brother that you sold to Mitzrayim? So the Kotzker wants to say, perhaps his kavanah is that maybe, besides the sale of Yosef, what could have happened to Yosef? He could have become this person who lost all his religion. He could have lost everything. And Yosef is saying, Ani Yosef, I am the same Yosef, Hashem Machartam Osim Mitzrayim. I'm the same Yosef who learned with my father, and all the Torah that he learned he gave over to me. And I am that same Yosef. You don't have to feel that you ruined me, so to speak, or you caused me to be ruined, or you placed me in a position, and as a result of that I got ruined. And therefore I am the same Yosef. And that's a tremendous thing, a tremendous nechama to them. Because a lot of times when a person does an action, it's not only the action itself that you do. The byproduct of all the domino effect about everything that person did. And here, Yosef is saying, I am the same Yosef. It says, and what is he saying? Ki lemichya shalachani lakim lefnechem. The reason why I was sent here is to provide for you. So every person has a tafkid. Every person has a job in life. Yosef is saying this is the reason behind everything, because I needed to be sent here. And this is my job. The question is what every person has to ask himself, are they fulfilling their tafkid in life, their job in life? And Yosef is saying that's the purpose behind it. And every person has obviously a purpose and a goal. There's a Gemara that says if you're osek in Torah and Chesed, you'll merit the inheritance of Yosef and Yisachar. So the pshat is most probably because Torah represents Yisachar and Chesed represents what? Yosef. If you're osek in Torah and Chesed, you'll get the nachala of Yosef and Yisachar. And what's interesting to point out is when they come down to Mitzrayim, when we identify who the people are that come down to Mitzrayim, the people are counted. The pasuk says, who came down? The children of Shimon, and one of them is Shaul ben Aknanis. Who is the Shaul ben Aknanis? So Rashi says, it's Shaul, the son of the Knanis, Dinah, that was raped by the Knani, by Shechem. And this was their son. The question is, obviously you can ask the question, why does the Torah have to tell us over here, why doesn't it tell us that the father was Shechem? Okay, it doesn't say it outright. It says it in a little hidden a little bit. You have to know pshat that it means the Knanis means that it means that the father was Shechem. Why isn't it necessary for the pasuk to tell us that? And I think also you can ask a similar question. The pasuk almost every time it mentions about Erva Onan. Yehuda, which Erva Onan, it says Vayomas Erva Onan. They died the children of Eretz, and they died in Eretz Canaan. We know they died in Eretz Canaan. We went a few pashas ago. They died, right? You have the whole story with Tamar and Yehuda. Why does the Torah have to again and again and again mention that they died over there and what happened with them? We know the story. So I want to suggest the following: the Torah, maybe by repeating it, wants to teach us obviously a lesson. That just like this, let's say the story of Erva Onan. What was the problem? Zera Levatola. They wasted seeds, so on and so forth. So what is the Torah doing by repeating the battle every time you mention them? And if you mention that they died, and you understand why they died, so then it should be a strengthening to people to recognize the seriousness of the sin. Every time you mention the sin, every time you're alluding to that sin. So therefore, people should learn from that how to take extra precaution not to come to waste the seed. And maybe similarly is the story by Dinah. By identifying her father as Shem, identifying that reminds us of the story, and reminds us of the story, then we say, how did it happen? And one of the reasons why it happened is because there wasn't enough precautions that were taken by Dinah. She went out alone, a nice, young, attractive young lady going out alone, not with anybody. In places where where they're not moral people. She was a nice young girl. She didn't expect such a thing to happen, but therefore people have to realize and to take obviously very precautions. People have to know, because if you put yourself into certain places, it's pretty dangerous that something might happen. So that could be a possibility why the pasuk has to tell us, to identify that we should remember that. And we'll just end with Yehuda shalach lefanov. And it said, Yaakov sent Yehuda to go ahead to Yosef, Lahoros, Lefanov Goshen. So Rashi says, what was the Medrash Agada? What was the point? What was he going for? The different shatim. Medrash Agada, Lahoros Lasakin lo beis Talmud shemisham tetzahara, to set up a yeshiva, right? So obviously we see from here one of the first things that a person, first you go into a community has to have a yeshiva, and so on and so forth. But who do you send to set up a yeshiva? You send the best, the strongest, the most. The yeshiva has to be. So you send Yehuda. Yehuda was one who has the most strength, right? It's the Gibor. Malchus will be from Yehuda. It's not that when it comes to Torah education, we'll leave it to the little guy will get involved. The weak guys will be, it's lower down on the total pole, on the pole, so to speak. No. We have to set up a yeshiva. It has to be set up with a tremendous strength, and the job of the yeshiva is for the best, the strongest guy should be involved in the yeshiva. Similarly, when it comes to activism in a college and a university, who should be involved in promoting Torah? Who should be involved in going into chinuch? Who should be involved in become the rebbeim and the leaders and the teachers? It should be the best. Just like Yehuda is the one who's involved in setting up the learning. That's who should be the ones leading in the Torah. Therefore, we expect all you guys to go out and to give shiurim and give classes. You have the abilities. You like Yehuda. You're very bright, and then so on and so forth. That's what we expect. We want you to get involved, take a leadership role in the learning as well. Okay, I want to wish everyone a beautiful Shabbos and enjoy your break. We could close the thing.
Yeah.